The first thing Taemin noticed when he woke up was the cold. It crept through his body like frozen water moving through his veins. His eyes opened slowly, and bright lights burned his vision. He tried to move his fingers, but they felt stiff and heavy. The cryogenic pod around him hissed and released a cloud of white vapor. A mechanical voice spoke above him. "Commander Taemin, welcome back. You have been asleep for 500,000 years." Taemin's mind struggled to understand those words. 500,000 years. That was not possible. The mission plan called for only 50,000 years of sleep. Something had gone terribly wrong. The pod opened completely, and Taemin sat up. His muscles screamed in protest, but he forced himself to stand. Around him, other pods were opening too. Men and women emerged, confused and frightened. They were the command crew of the Eternal Horizon, the flagship of humanity's refugee fleet. "Oracle, report," Taemin said to the ship's artificial intelligence. His voice sounded rough and strange to his own ears. "Commander, I have grave news," Oracle replied. "Earth's signal stopped 499,847 years ago. All human colonies went silent shortly after. I extended the sleep cycle to preserve the fleet while I searched for answers. I found them 3 years ago and initiated the awakening sequence. I have the Jubble. 1.69 and Crete 9. 1. My pressure." Taemin felt his heart sink. Earth was gone. Everything they had left behind was gone. He walked to the command center on shaking legs. Other crew members followed him, silent and afraid. The command center's main screen showed a map of the Milky Way galaxy, but it looked different from the map Taemin remembered. Large sections were marked in red. At the center of those red zones was a symbol he did not recognize. "What am I looking at?" Taemin asked. "The Velkrathi Empire," Oracle said. "They control 2 spiral arms of the galaxy now. 12,000 worlds. The territory where Earth and the human colonies existed is now marked as a forbidden zone." Ji-woo, the chief navigator, moved closer to the screen. Her hands trembled as she touched the controls. "Show me Earth's coordinates." The screen zoomed in. Where Earth should have been, there was now only a debris field. Warning beacons surrounded it, broadcasting messages in an alien language. Oracle translated the words that appeared on the screen. "Sacred cleansing site. Entry forbidden. The soft ones were purged here." "Purged," Ji-woo whispered. "They killed everyone." Taemin felt rage building in his chest, but he pushed it down. He needed to think clearly. "Oracle, show me the fleet status." 53 colony ships remain operational. Total population: 530 million humans in cryogenic sleep. All ships are functional. Resource levels are adequate for another century of operation. 530 million. That was all that remained of humanity. Taemin remembered Earth before they fled. 12 billion people. Now they were reduced to this tiny number, floating in the empty space between galaxies. "Wake the council," Taemin ordered. "We need to make decisions." Over the next few hours, more people woke up. Admiral Haewon, the fleet commander, emerged from her pod, looking old and tired. Chief Engineer Dong-hyun took longer to wake, but when he did, he immediately started checking the ship's systems. Science Director Bo-ram was quiet as she studied the data Oracle had collected. Military Commander Young-sik's face turned hard when he learned what had happened to Earth. They gathered in the council chamber. The room was small and plain, designed for function rather than comfort. Tae-min stood at the head of the table and looked at each person. "You all know what happened," he said. "Earth is gone. The colonies are gone. We are all that remains of humanity. The Velkrathi Empire destroyed our home and everyone we left behind. Now we must decide what to do next." Dong-hyun spoke first. "We could keep running. Find a new galaxy. Start over somewhere the Velcrothi will never find us. Run again? Young Sik's voice was sharp. We ran before, and look what happened. 12 billion people died because we ran. We ran because we had no choice. Hey-One said. Earth's defenses were failing. The Velcrothi fleet was too strong. We saved who we could. None. And now? Young Sik asked. Are we still too weak? Will we run forever? Bo-Ram raised her hand. There is something you all need to know. Something important that happened during the long sleep. Everyone turned to look at her. She touched a control panel, and images appeared on the wall screen. They showed DNA sequences and biological charts. The ships were not completely automated, Bo-Ram explained. Small crews stayed awake in 10-year shifts to maintain the systems. They lived, had children, and died. Their children took over the next shift. This cycle repeated for 50,000 generations. What are you saying? Taemin asked. Evolution, Bo-Ram said. 500,000 years of evolution in a harsh environment. Background radiation. Zero gravity. Recycled air. The maintenance crews adapted. Their descendants are still alive, working in the deep sections of the ships, and all of us who slept have been changed too. The radiation altered our DNA as we slept. She brought up new images, brain scans, cellular analyses, genetic maps. We are not the same humans who left Earth, Bo-Ram continued. Our neural processing is faster. We can withstand radiation that would have killed our ancestors. Our lifespans are longer. Our bodies are stronger. We have evolved. The room was silent as everyone processed this information. They were different now. Changed. Perhaps that was what they needed to be. Taemin looked around the table. I think we all know what needs to be done. But this is too important for a small group to decide. We vote. Not just us, but everyone. We wake the fleet and let humanity choose its future. Over the next month, all 530 million humans were woken from their long sleep. They learned about Earth's destruction. They learned about the Velcrothi Empire. They learned about their own evolution. And then they voted. The result was clear. 93% voted for the same thing. They would not run anymore. They would go back. They would reclaim what was stolen. They would make the Velcrothi pay for what they had done. Taemin stood on the bridge of the eternal horizon and looked at the distant stars of the Milky Way. Somewhere in that spiral of light was Earth. Or what remained of it. The Velcrothi thought humanity was extinct. They thought they had won. They were wrong. Oracle, Taemin said. Set course for the Milky Way. Full speed. Destination? Oracle asked. Home, Taemin replied. We're going home. The fleet's engines came to life for the first time in 500,000 years. 53 massive ships began to move, accelerating toward the distant galaxy. Inside them, humanity prepared for war. They had been gone for 500,000 years. Now they were coming back, and they would have their revenge. The journey to the Milky Way took 3 years. During that time, the fleet transformed itself from a collection of refugee ships into something else. Something dangerous. Captain Subin stood in the briefing room, looking at holographic images of a Velcrothi mining colony. She was young for a captain, only 35, but she had proven herself during the training exercises. Now, she would lead humanity's first mission into enemy territory. This is Kepler 442b, she explained to her team. A mining world on the outer edge of Velcrothi space. Small garrison. 300 soldiers. 5,000 workers. Our intelligence suggests the workers are slaves from conquered species. Her team consisted of 20 soldiers, all volunteers. They wore new armor, designed by Dong Hyun's engineering teams. The armor could bend light around itself, making the wearer nearly invisible. It could also withstand extreme temperatures and radiation. Our mission is simple, Subin continued. Go in quietly. Gather intelligence about the Velcrothi. Learn their strengths and weaknesses. Get out without being detected. One of the soldiers, a young man named Jun Ho, raised his hand. What if we're discovered? Subin's expression was hard. Then, we fight our way out. But, we prefer not to announce our presence yet. The Velcrothi still think we're extinct. That's an advantage we want to keep. The stealth ship dropped them on the dark side of Kepler 442b. The planet was cold and harsh, with a thin atmosphere that smelled of sulfur. In the distance, they could see the lights of the mining complex. They moved silently across the rocky terrain. Their armor's camouflage made them look like shadows, barely visible even to each other. As they got closer, Subin could see the mining operation clearly. Massive machines dug into the planet's crust, extracting some kind of glowing ore. Workers moved between the machines, thin and exhausted. Guards in heavy armor watched them, weapons ready. The guards were Velcrothi, and Subin got her first clear look at humanity's enemy. They were tall, almost 8 feet high, with rough gray skin covered in bony plates. 4 arms, each ending in clawed hands. Their faces were flat and wide, with multiple eyes arranged in a semicircle. They looked strong and dangerous, but it was the workers that made Subin's blood run cold. They were from different species, but they all looked the same: starving, beaten, hopeless. Many had visible injuries. Some collapsed from exhaustion and were dragged away by the guards. Subin recorded everything with her helmet's camera. This was important information. But she also felt rage building inside her. The Velcrothi were not just conquerors. They were slavers and torturers. Her team spent 3 days observing the colony. They learned the guard patterns. They studied the Velcrothi weapons and technology. They identified the weak points in the colony's defenses. And they listened to the communications between the colony and other Velcrothi outposts. On the 3rd night, Subin made a decision. We're taking one of them alive, she told her team. They waited until a guard patrol moved away from the main complex. 2 Velcrothi soldiers, walking a perimeter route that took them past a rocky outcrop. Subin and her team were waiting. The capture was quick and violent. Stun weapons dropped the first guard before he could react. Within seconds, both guards were unconscious and bound. They took one guard back to their landing site and left the other hidden. He would wake up eventually and raise an alarm, but by then, they would be gone. Back on the stealth ship, they woke their prisoner. The Velcrothi soldier struggled against his bonds, his multiple eyes moving frantically. Subin stood in front of him, her helmet recording everything. Do you speak any human languages? She asked in English. The Velcrothi stared at her. Then, in rough, broken English, he said, Human? Impossible. Soft ones are extinct. We purged them. You tried, Subin said. You failed. Some of us survived. Now, we're back. The guard laughed, a harsh clicking sound. You think you matter? The Empire spans 12,000 worlds, trillions of subjects, thousands of warships. You are nothing. Insects. Tell me about your defenses, Subin said. The guard laughed again. Why? So you can attack? Go ahead. Try. We will crush you, like we crushed Earth. The soft ones fled because they were weak. You will flee again. Subin leaned closer. We're not the same humans you fought before. We've changed, evolved, grown stronger, and we're not fleeing anymore. She played back the recordings from the mining colony, showing the guard his own people beating and starving the workers. This is what you do. This is why we're here. Not just for revenge, for justice. The guard spat at her. Justice. We are the strong. They are the weak. That is the only law that matters. The Velcrothi rule, because we deserve to rule. Subin realized they would get nothing useful from this one. He was too indoctrinated, too convinced of his people's superiority. She left him secured in the holding cell and went to find the intelligence officer. Kyung-soo was reviewing the data they had collected. He looked up when Subin entered. "The prisoner is useless," she said. "Perhaps," Kyung-soo replied. "But the communications we intercepted are valuable. I've been analyzing their transmissions. The Velcrothi use quantum encryption, but it's an old system. I think I can break it." He worked for hours, running decryption programs. Finally, the codes broke. Messages flooded the screens. Orders, reports, conversations between Velcrothi commanders. "This is incredible," Kyung-soo said. "They're completely unprepared for war. The Empire hasn't faced a real threat in thousands of years. Their military is huge, but it's spread thin across 12,000 worlds. And their technology hasn't advanced much in the last 100,000 years." They became complacent. Subin felt a small spark of hope. What about their weapons? Powerful, but predictable. Plasma cannons, quantum displacement missiles, singularity bombs, dimensional shields. All very impressive. But we've had 500,000 years to think about how to counter these things. Back at the fleet, Subin reported to Admiral Hae-won and Commander Tae-min. She showed them everything they had learned. The Velcrothi defenses, their technology, their arrogance. "They think we're extinct," Subin said. "They remember us as weak refugees who ran away. They have no idea what's coming." Dong-hyun activated a holographic display. While Subin's team was gathering intelligence, "We've been building weapons." New weapons. The display showed strange-looking ships and devices. "These are null field generators," Dong-hyun explained. "They create bubbles of space where normal physics don't apply. Dimensional shields can't stop them because there's no dimension to shield against. The field just erases whatever it touches." He brought up another design. Quantum disruptors. They break apart the bonds between atoms. One shot can vaporize a ship's hull. And phase drives that let our ships slip between dimensions. We can appear anywhere, anytime. Young-sik, the military commander, studied the weapons with hungry eyes. "When do we start production?" "We already have," Dong-hyun said. "The manufacturing ships have been working non-stop. We have enough weapons for a first strike. Small scale, but effective." Tae-min looked at the star map, showing Velcrothi territory. "Then, it's time to send a message. Young-sik, prepare your fleet. 3 ships, fast attack vessels, target, the outpost in the Horsehead Nebula. Make it quick. Make it clean. And make sure no one escapes to tell the tale." Young-sik smiled. It was not a pleasant expression. "Understood." 2 weeks later, 3 human frigates emerged from quantum space near a Velcrothi outpost. The station was massive, built into an asteroid, bristling with weapons. It could hold off a small fleet. It lasted 11 minutes. The human ships phased through the station's shields, as if they weren't there. Null field weapons carved through the hull. Quantum disruptors turned the interior into dust. The few Velcrothi who tried to escape in ships were destroyed before they could activate their faster-than-light drives. When the battle ended, there was only debris. No survivors. No witnesses. No warning sent. Humanity had announced its return. But the Velcrothi didn't know it yet. And that was exactly what Tae-min wanted. The message came through on an old frequency, one that humanity had used centuries ago for deep space communication. It was encrypted with codes that only humans would recognize. But the sender was not human. Ambassador Jae-hee listened to the message in her private quarters. The voice spoke in broken English, mixing in words from other languages. "Humans, we know you are here. We saw what you did at the Horsehead Station. We are the broken chain. We are slaves of the Velcrothi. We want to be free. Please, help us." Jae-hee brought the message to Admiral Hae-won and Commander Tae-min. They listened to it 3 times before anyone spoke. "It could be a trap," Hae-won said. "It could be," Tae-min agreed. But if it's real, we have potential allies. Other species who hate the Velcrothi as much as we do. Jae-hee studied the message's origin point. They're transmitting from a hidden location in the Crab Nebula. Deep inside, Velcrothi, space. If we go there, we're taking a huge risk. Everything we do is a risk, Taemin said. But we can't win this war alone. 530 million humans against an empire of trillions? We need allies. 1. 3 days later, Jae-hee's ship arrived at the coordinates. It was an old asteroid mining station, abandoned and drifting. But when they got closer, they could see it was not empty. Ships were hidden in the carved-out sections, small ships, built from scavenged parts, but armed and ready. Jae-hee took a shuttle to the station with a security team. They were met by representatives from 6 different species. All of them had been slaves of the Velcrothi. The first to speak was a crystalline being that stood 8 feet tall. Its body was made of transparent material that caught the light and split it into colors. It spoke through a translation device. I am Mothrath of the Mothari people. We have been slaves for 3,000 years. The Velcrothi use us for our ability to survive in high radiation environments. Next was an aquatic creature in a water-filled suit. I am Fenkor. My people, the Fendai, were conquered 5,000 years ago. They use us to mine underwater worlds. One by one, the others introduced themselves. The insectoid Prel, the gaseous Nix Van, the reptilian Shorkai, the plant-like Verdnax, all conquered, all enslaved, all waiting for someone strong enough to challenge the Velcrothi. You destroyed a Velcrothi outpost without losing a single ship, Mothrath said. That has never been done before. Not in recorded history. Who are you? We are humans, Jae-hee said. The Velcrothi destroyed our world 500,000 years ago. We survived. We evolved. Now we're back to settle the debt. The representatives looked at each other. 500,000 years. That was an impossibly long time. But here stood proof that it was possible to survive, to endure, to come back stronger. What do you want from us? Fenkor asked. Information. Resources. Warriors who know how to fight the Velcrothi. In exchange, we offer freedom. When we defeat the Velcrothi Empire, you will be free. When you defeat them? One of the Prel clicked skeptically. Not if? Jae-hee looked at each of them. We don't plan to lose. We've been thinking about this war for 500,000 years. We're ready. The alliance was formed in that hidden asteroid station. 6 species joined with humanity. They contributed ships, supplies, and intelligence about Velcrothi operations. More importantly, they provided something humanity desperately needed: numbers. Over the next 3 months, the alliance grew. More species joined. The broken chain became a network that spread across sectors. And then came the day when Admiral Hae-1 launched Operation Homecoming. The plan was audacious. 60 human warships would strike 12 slave colonies simultaneously. Each colony would be liberated in a lightning attack. The Velcrothi would be caught completely off guard. Fleet Commander Su Bin led one of the attack groups. Her target was a prison world called Kalthar 9. Intelligence said it held 2 million slaves from 30 different species. It was guarded by a small fleet of 6 Velcrothi destroyers. Su Bin's group consisted of 5 human frigates and 3 allied support ships. They emerged from quantum space at the edge of the system and immediately went to full speed. The Velcrothi spotted them quickly. Alarms blared across the prison world. The destroyers moved to intercept, their shields glowing bright. All ships, engage phase drives, Su Bin ordered. Show them what we can do. The human ships flickered and vanished from normal space. The Velcrothi weapons fired at empty space. Then, the human ships reappeared behind the Velcrothi fleet, already firing. Null field weapons tore through shields like they were paper. Quantum disruptors reduced the first destroyer to atoms in seconds. The second tried to run but was caught by a phase missile that appeared inside its engine room and detonated. The remaining 4 destroyers scattered, trying to form a defensive line. It didn't help. The human ships moved too fast, hit too hard. Within 20 minutes, all 6 destroyers were destroyed. Subin's ships moved to the planet. The prison facilities covered an entire continent. Guards were running everywhere, trying to organize a defense. Subin opened a communication channel and broadcast in every known language. Attention all prisoners. This is Captain Subin of the Human Liberation Fleet. Your prison is now under our control. All guards will surrender immediately or be destroyed. To the prisoners, you are free. The Velkrathi will not hurt you anymore. The guards tried to fight. It was a mistake. Boarding teams phased directly into the guard towers. The fighting was brief and brutal. Within an hour, every guard was dead or captured. 2 million slaves walked out of their cells into sunlight. Many of them cried. Some fell to their knees. They had been told that resistance was futile, that the Velkrathi would rule forever. Now they learned that was a lie. Similar scenes played out on 11 other worlds. The Velkrathi response was slow and confused. Their empire was vast, and communication between sectors took time. By the time they organized a response, the liberated slaves were already being evacuated to safe locations. But eventually, the news reached Velkrath Prime, the empire's capital. Supreme Overlord Mothkar received the reports with disbelief. Impossible, he said to his advisors. The humans are extinct. We purged them. The evidence suggests otherwise, Overlord, one advisor said carefully. These attacks bear the signature of human technology from the old war, but improved, advanced. Mothkar studied the reports. 12 colonies liberated. 18 destroyers destroyed. Not a single human ship lost. This was not possible. The humans, he remembered, were weak, running away from every battle. Send the Crimson Fleet, Mothkar ordered. 300 ships. Find these humans and crush them. Make it clear what happens to those who challenge the Empire. The Crimson Fleet was the pride of the Velkrathi military. 300 warships, each powerful enough to destroy a planet. They had not been deployed together in 5,000 years because no threat was great enough to require it. They found the human fleet in the Carina Nebula. 30 human ships against 300. The Velkrathi commander sent a message before attacking. Surrender now, and we will only enslave you. Fight, and we will purge you like we purged your ancestors. Taemin, commanding the human fleet, replied with 2 words. Come try. The battle began badly for the Velkrathi. The human ships phased in and out of normal space, appearing wherever they wanted. They targeted the command ships first, destroying the fleet's coordination. Then they focused on the engines, leaving ships stranded and helpless. The Velkrathi had numbers, but numbers meant nothing against an enemy they couldn't hit. Their weapons fired at ghosts. Their shields blocked nothing. Their tactics, developed over thousands of years of easy victories, were useless against an opponent who refused to follow the expected patterns. After 1 hour, half the Crimson Fleet was destroyed. After 2 hours, the survivors broke formation and ran. The mighty Velkrathi fleet, defeated by a force 1/10 its size. Back on Velkrath Prime, Mothkar stared at the battle reports. This was impossible. This was terrifying. The humans had returned, and they were stronger than anything the Empire had ever faced. Admiral Haewon broadcast a message on all Velkrathi communication channels. Her image appeared on screens across 12,000 worlds. She spoke in the Velkrathi language, making sure everyone understood. 500,000 years ago, you murdered our world. You thought us extinct. You were wrong. We are humanity. We have returned, and we will have our vengeance. Surrender your territories, free your slaves, or burn. The Velkrathi refused to surrender. They had ruled for too long to give up now. But across their empire, Something had changed. The slaves had heard the message. They knew humans were real. They knew resistance was possible. The broken chain began to rise. The war ground on for 2 years. Every week brought new battles. Every month brought new victories. But the cost was growing. Fleet Commander Subin stood at the memorial wall aboard the Eternal Horizon. Names covered the wall from floor to ceiling. Every human who had died in the war had their name carved here. Subin touched the most recent addition. Private Minseo. Killed during the assault on Tarkin Station. She was only 19 years old. 40,000 names. 40,000 humans dead. For a species of only 530 million, it was a terrible loss. Almost 1% of their entire population. Subin remembered when they started this war. They had been so confident. Their technology was superior. Their determination was absolute. They thought it would be quick and clean. They were wrong. The Velcrothi adapted. They learned. They started using dimensional mines that exploded when human ships phased through space. They placed slave species on their ships as living shields, knowing humans would hesitate to kill innocents. When they couldn't win a battle, they destroyed entire planets rather than let them fall into human hands. The war became brutal and cruel. Both sides committed atrocities. Both sides suffered losses. And slowly, humanity began to wonder if revenge was worth extinction. Commander Youngsik led the push through the Orion Spur. His forces had won 15 major battles in 6 months, but each victory cost more than the last. His ships returned with damage that took weeks to repair. His soldiers came back, wounded in body and spirit. He stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching a battle unfold on the main screen. 3 human destroyers were fighting 6 Velcrothi cruisers near a gas giant. The human ships phased and dodged, but the Velcrothi had learned to predict their movements. A dimensional mine detonated, catching one human ship as it emerged from phase space. The ship broke apart, spilling atmosphere and bodies into the void. Youngsik closed his eyes. Another 200 humans dead. How many more could they afford to lose? Medical Director In Su worked 18-hour days in the fleet's hospitals. Wounded soldiers filled every bed. Some had injuries that could be healed. Others would carry their scars forever. Many would never return to active duty. In Su found herself treating more than physical wounds. Soldiers came to her with nightmares. They couldn't sleep. They couldn't eat. They had seen too much death. She tried to help them, but what they really needed was for the war to end. Counselor Hyo Jin reported to Admiral Hae-won with troubling news. The civilian population is growing restless. With A1, she said. They support the war, but they're exhausted. Every family has lost someone. People are starting to ask if revenge is worth losing everything we've rebuilt. Hae-won understood their concerns. She felt the same way sometimes, late at night when she couldn't sleep. But she also remembered Earth's destruction. 12 billion people murdered. She couldn't let that go unanswered. Tell them we're getting closer, Hae-won said. Tell them the end is in sight. She hoped it was true. Science Director Boram spent months analyzing captured Velcrothi data cores. The information they contained was vast. Star charts, fleet positions, resource depots. But one file caught her attention. It was heavily encrypted and buried deep in the system. It took her 2 weeks to break the encryption. When she finally opened the file, she couldn't believe what she was seeing. She called an emergency meeting with Taemin, Hae-won, and the senior staff. I found something, Boram said. Something important. I know where the Velcrothi capital is located. She brought up a star chart. It showed the Sagittarius arm of the galaxy. A single star system was marked in bright red. Velcroth Prime, Boram said. The heart of their empire. It's protected by 6 battle stations and over 1,000 warships. It's the most heavily defended system in the galaxy. Where is it exactly? Taemin asked. Boram zoomed in on the coordinates. Then, she overlaid an old human star chart from before the war. The two charts aligned perfectly. Everyone in the room went silent. That's where Earth was, Haywan said quietly. Yes, Boram confirmed. After they destroyed Earth, they moved it first. Used gravity weapons to shift it out of its orbit. Then, they broke it apart. Finally, they built their capital in the same orbit where Earth used to be. It's symbolic. They built their throne on our grave. Young Sik slammed his fist on the table. They did this on purpose. They're mocking us. Perhaps, Taemin said. Or perhaps they wanted to make sure humans could never return home. Either way, it changes nothing. We were always going to target their capital, eventually. Now we know where it is. Ambassador Jae-hee had been traveling throughout the liberated territories, meeting with the Broken Chain leadership. The alliance had grown far beyond the original 6 species. 15 species now fought alongside humanity. Rebellions erupted on dozens of Velcrothi worlds. Jae-hee stood before a gathering of allied leaders on a liberated station. Hundreds of representatives from different species filled the chamber. She addressed them all. The Velcrothi Empire is falling apart, she said. They pull their forces back to protect their core worlds. They abandon their outer territories. They lose more systems every week, but they still have their capital. As long as Velcroth Prime stands, they will never truly surrender. Mothroth, the Mothari representative, spoke. You plan to attack their capital. This is suicide. They have thousands of ships there. Their defenses are impossible to break. Nothing is impossible, Jae-hee said. We've proven that already. 2 years ago, everyone said we couldn't defeat the Crimson Fleet. We did. They said we couldn't liberate their core worlds. We have. Now we will do what seems impossible one more time. Fencor, the Fendai representative, stood. If you attack Velcroth Prime, you will need every ship you have. This will be the final battle. If you lose, humanity is finished. If we don't try, the war continues forever, Jae-hee replied. How many more must die before we end this? We've lost 40,000. The Velcrothi have lost millions. The slave species have lost millions more. This has to end. The chamber erupted in discussion. Some species wanted to continue the slow liberation campaign. Others agreed that a final strike was necessary. The debate went on for hours. Finally, Mothrath spoke again. If humanity is willing to risk everything, then we will stand with you. The Mothari will commit all our ships to this battle. One by one, the other species agreed. The alliance would march on Velcroth Prime together. Admiral Haywan assembled the Grand Fleet over the course of 6 months. Every human warship that could fly was included. Every allied vessel joined. Supply ships, medical ships, repair ships, everything humanity had built in 2 years of war. 600 ships in total. It was the largest fleet humans had ever commanded, but it was still smaller than the defense fleet at Velcroth Prime. Commander Taemin walked through the eternal horizon, speaking with the crew. He visited the pilots, the engineers, the medical staff, the soldiers. He looked each person in the eye and thanked them for their service. He knew some of them would not survive the coming battle. Maybe most of them. Maybe all of them. But they deserved to know their sacrifice mattered. The night before the fleet departed, Taemin stood in his quarters, looking at an old photograph. It showed Earth as it appeared from orbit. Blue oceans, green continents, white clouds. Home. The photograph was 500,000 years old. Recovered from ancient data archives. Earth as it had been before the Velcrothi came. Before the war. Before humanity fled into the dark. Taemin placed the photograph in his pocket. Tomorrow, they would return to where Earth once was. They would face the enemy that destroyed their home. They would fight the final battle. Oracle, Taemin said. Begin jump calculations. Destination. Velcroth Prime. Calculations complete, Commander. The fleet is ready. Taemin took a deep breath. Then let's go home. The Grand Fleet activated its quantum drives. 600 ships vanished from normal space, beginning their journey to the coordinates where Earth used to be. To the place the Velcrothi built their capital. To the heart of the empire that murdered humanity's world. They were going home to settle the debt. The Grand Fleet emerged from quantum space at the edge of the Velcroth Prime system. 600 ships appeared at once, filling the sensors of every Velcrothi station with warnings and alarms. Admiral Hay-Wan stood on the bridge of the Eternal Horizon and looked at the tactical display. The Velcrothi defense fleet waited for them, 1,400 warships arranged in 3 defensive lines. Behind them orbited the 6 massive battle stations, each one capable of destroying entire fleets. And beyond the stations was the planet itself, Velcroth Prime. Built in the orbit where Earth once lived. They knew we were coming, Commander Youngsik said. Of course they did, Hay-Wan replied. This is their capital. They've been preparing for this since the war began. Supreme Overlord Mothkar broadcast a message to the human fleet. His image appeared on every screen. He looked old and tired, but his voice was still strong. Humans. You have fought well. Better than we thought possible. But this is where your revenge ends. Surrender now, and we will allow your species to survive as subjects of the Empire. Fight and we will finish what we started 500,000 years ago, Admiral Hay-Wan responded. You destroyed our home, murdered 12 billion innocent people, enslaved 100 species. You built your throne on our world's grave, and now you offer us slavery as mercy? We refuse. Today, the Velcrothi Empire ends. The battle began. The Allied forces engaged the outer defense line while human battleships pushed through the center. Weapons fire lit up the dark space like a lightning storm. Ships exploded. Shields collapsed. The void filled with debris. Commander Youngsik led the vanguard in his flagship, Retribution. He had fought in every major battle of the war. He had lost half his original crew, but he had never lost his determination to see this through. All ships, follow my lead, he ordered. Target their command vessels. Break their coordination. The human warships phased through the Velcrothi lines, appearing behind the command ships. Null-field weapons carved through hulls. Quantum disruptors turned the insides of ships into dust. Within minutes, the Velcrothi lost their fleet coordination, but the sheer numbers were overwhelming. For every Velcrothi ship destroyed, 2 more took its place. The human ships began taking damage. The Allied forces were being pushed back. We're losing too many ships, Youngsik's second officer reported. At this rate, we won't reach the stations. Youngsik looked at the tactical display. His officer was right. They needed a new approach. All human ships, form up on me. We're going to phase directly to the stations. It was a desperate move. Phasing through so many ships and defensive fields was incredibly dangerous. But they were out of options. 20 human battleships activated their phase drives simultaneously. They vanished from the outer battle and reappeared next to the battle stations. The Velcrothi defenders were caught completely off guard. Captain Subin commanded the assault on Station 3. Her teams used personal phase devices to board the station directly, appearing in the corridors and command centers. The fighting was brutal and close. Hand-to-hand combat in zero gravity. No room for mistakes. Subin's team fought their way to the station's reactor core. Velcrothi soldiers tried to stop them, but human weapons were superior, and human soldiers were fighting for their home. Within an hour, Subin planted demolition charges throughout the core. All teams, evacuate now, she ordered. Her soldiers phased back to their ships. The charges detonated. Station 3 broke apart in a massive explosion that lit up the entire system. One by one, the other stations fell. Station 5 was destroyed by phase missiles that appeared inside its shield generators. Station 1 was torn apart by null-field weapons. Station 6 surrendered after its crew realized they couldn't win, but the victory came at terrible cost. 15 human battleships were destroyed. 300 Allied vessels were gone. Thousands of soldiers died in the boarding actions. Commander Young-Sik's ship was badly damaged. One entire section was open to space. His crew worked desperately to keep the engines running. But they had achieved their objective. The battle stations were destroyed. Now the path to Velkrath Prime was open. Admiral Hay-1 ordered the final assault. The remaining human ships pushed toward the planet. The Velkrathi defense fleet tried to stop them, but they were scattered and leaderless. The Grand Fleet crashed through them like a hammer. Commander Taemin took a landing shuttle down to the planet's surface. He brought a security team and a message for Supreme Overlord Mothkar. It was time to end this. The shuttle landed in the capital city. Velkrathi citizens ran in panic. Buildings burned from the orbital bombardment. But Taemin had ordered his ships to avoid civilian targets. This was not about genocide. It was about justice. Mothkar waited in his palace, surrounded by his personal guards. Taemin walked through the massive doors with his team. The guards raised their weapons, but Mothkar waved them down. "You won," Mothkar said bitterly. "I'm here to accept your surrender," Taemin replied. Mothkar laughed. It was a harsh, broken sound. "Surrender? You destroyed my fleet. You killed millions of my people. And now you want me to surrender as if this was just a war?" "This was a war," Taemin said. "A war you started when you destroyed Earth. But we're not like you. We could glass this planet from orbit. We could do to you what you did to us. But we won't." "Why not?" Mothkar demanded. "We would not show you mercy." "I know," Taemin said. "That's the difference between us. We choose to be better than you. The Velkrathi Empire is finished. Your fleets are destroyed. Your colonies are free. Your slaves are liberated. Now, you will face trial for your crimes. All of your leadership will answer for what they've done." Mothkar stared at him. "You think your mercy makes you strong? It makes you weak. We'll see," Taemin said. "Guards, take him into custody." The war ended that day. The Velkrathi Empire, which had ruled for 10,000 years, collapsed within weeks. Without their military and leadership, the empire broke into hundreds of independent states. The former slave species formed their own governments. The broken chain became a peacekeeping force to prevent chaos. The trials lasted for years. Velkrathi leaders were judged by representatives from every species they had oppressed. Some were executed for genocide. Others were imprisoned for life. Many were forced to work, rebuilding the worlds they had destroyed. But humanity's work was not finished. Science Director Boram led an expedition to find Earth's remains. The Velkrathi had moved the planet before destroying it. The debris field was scattered across a neighboring system. Boram's team spent months searching through the wreckage. Most of Earth was just dust now. But they found fragments. Pieces of continents. Sections of ocean floor turned to ice, and buried deep in one fragment, they found a data cache. It was a message from Earth's final days. Videos. Audio recordings. Written messages. The last words of humanity before the end. Boram sat alone in her lab and watched the recordings. She saw people saying goodbye to loved ones they knew they would never see again. She heard final messages to whoever might find them. She read letters written in dozens of languages, all saying the same thing. Remember us. Don't let our deaths be meaningless. One recording showed a young woman holding a baby. If anyone finds this, she said, tears running down her face, please know that we existed. We lived. We loved. We tried our best. And if any humans survived, please know that we died hoping you would make something better. Something worth all this pain. Boram cried watching that recording. She cried for all the people who died. She cried for all the time that had passed. 500,000 years between their death and humanity's return. But they had returned. And they had made something better. Navigator Ji Woo proposed a memorial. The fragments of Earth would be collected and reformed into a new structure. Not a planet, but a massive station. It would be called New Earth, built from old Earth's remains. The construction took 10 years. Every human helped in some way. Every allied species contributed. The fragments of Earth were carefully arranged into a ring structure around a bright yellow star. Inside the ring, parks and gardens grew. Buildings rose. It became a living memorial, a capital for the new civilization they were building. 50 years after the war ended, elder statesman Taemin addressed the Galactic Assembly. He was old now, almost 90, but his voice was still strong. 50 years ago, we returned to this galaxy seeking revenge, he said. We found it. But we found something more important. We found that revenge alone is not enough. Justice must be paired with mercy. Strength must be paired with wisdom. And victory must be paired with the determination to build something better. He looked around at the representatives from 30 different species. Former enemies. Former slaves. All working together now. 18C. Humanity's revenge was not just destruction. Taemin continued. It was liberation. It was justice. It was proving that even after 500,000 years, some things endure. Memory, defiance, and the refusal to let evil go unanswered. The assembly applauded. Not just the humans, but everyone. Because the message was not just for humanity, it was for anyone who had suffered, anyone who had been oppressed, anyone who refused to give up hope. That night, Taemin stood on an observation deck looking at New Earth. The memorial glowed in the light of its sun. Inside it, 1 billion humans lived and worked. The population was growing again. Children were being born who would never know the fear of extinction. He thought about all the people who had died to make this possible. The 12 billion on Earth, the 40,000 soldiers in the war, all the slaves who died before liberation came. Their sacrifice had meaning now. Their deaths had purchased freedom for billions, justice for the oppressed, and a new civilization built on the ashes of the old. Taemin pulled out the old photograph of Earth from his pocket. He looked at it one last time. Then he placed it in a memorial box and sealed it. The past was honored. The debt was paid. Now it was time to look forward. Oracle, he said. Play the last message from the Earth data cache. The voice of the young woman with the baby filled the room. We died hoping you would make something better. Something worth all this pain. Taemin smiled. We did, he said softly. We did. Outside, New Earth spun slowly in the void, built from the remains of the old world. A testament to humanity's endurance. A promise that some things can never be destroyed, no matter how long the darkness lasts. The humans who would not die. The humans who came home.